Picture an ordinary bank branch at the end of an ordinary day. A teller is behind on a number, not the bank's profit, not a customer's balance, but a personal sales target for how many new products she is supposed to open. The target was built on a simple idea the company repeated like a prayer, that a good customer holds many accounts, and the very best branches sell 8, not because 8 was the right number for any real person, but because inside the company 8 rhymed with the word great. They built a whole campaign around it. There was just one catch. Most people walking into a bank do not want 8 of anything. Every fraud is a clock. And this one started ticking the moment that sales target climbed higher than anything real customers actually wanted. The company was Wells Fargo, for a time the most valuable bank in the world, famous for one number it printed in its annual reports and held up as proof of its health, the number of products each household held. It had grown from around 3.5 in the late 1990s to more than 6 by 2015. Wall Street loved it. It looked like the surest sign there was of a deep, loyal relationship with tens of millions of customers. And here is the part that makes this one different from almost every other fraud in this series. There was no hidden vault, no secret offshore account, no forged ledger buried in a back office. The thing that drove the fraud was the official, printed-on-the-wall sales goal. Nobody needed to order a crime. They just made honesty impossible to afford, and then watched the number climb. This is the story of how a sales target became a fraud the company never had to commit on purpose, and how the people who tried to stop it were punished first. Start with the idea itself, because on its own it is not a crime. It is called cross-selling, when a customer who has a checking account also takes out a savings account, a credit card, and signs up for online banking. The bank earns more from that one relationship, and the customer is less likely to leave. Done honestly, cross-selling is just good business. Almost every bank does it. Wells Fargo turned it into the center of everything. It picked a single measure, products per household, and made that number the way it described itself to the world. 6 products per customer was not just a statistic in a report. It was the story. We know our customers so well that they keep choosing to do more with us. The whole identity of the bank was pinned to that one rising line. Inside the company, that campaign had a name you would expect from a pep rally, not a bank. Going for GR8. What began as a cheerful internal target hardened over the years into something else. A quota that came down from the boardroom, through the regions, all the way to a daily number on each individual employee's screen. And this is the trap at the heart of the whole story. A trap with a name. There is an idea called Goodhart's law. When a measure becomes a target, it stops being a good measure. The moment the products per household number stopped describing real customer relationships and became the thing everyone was punished or rewarded for hitting, it stopped describing anything at all. It just started manufacturing itself. Here's how that target felt from the bottom. Daily sales goals were tracked constantly, by the hour in some branches. Fall short and the gap did not disappear. According to the bank's own later investigation, the shortfall was added on top of the next day's goal. Miss again, and it compounded like a debt. Employees described being coached, threatened, and pushed to stay late and chase numbers, in a culture one lawsuit called strictly enforced and nearly impossible to meet honestly. Now do the arithmetic, because that is really all this is. In any given branch, the number of real customers who genuinely want a new account this month is a fixed, fairly small thing. Once your quota climbs above that number, there are only 2 ways to hit it. You can fail, and risk being fired, or you can open accounts nobody asked for. The fraud was not a single dark decision made in a boardroom. For thousands of ordinary employees, it was the only arithmetic that let them keep their jobs. So they invented. The techniques even had names. Sandbagging meant holding completed applications and opening them later. To smooth out the numbers, pinning meant assigning customers secret personal identification numbers, without their knowledge, to enroll them in online banking they never wanted. There were unauthorized checking and savings accounts, credit and debit cards issued in customers' names, fake email sign-ups, forged signatures, and money quietly shuffled between accounts to make a dead one look alive. Some employees did this knowingly. Others were cornered into it. But almost none of them invented the pressure, they inherited it. It is important to be precise about what this was, and what it was not. There is no evidence that senior management sent out a memo ordering anyone to commit fraud. What the bank did, in the words of the United States Justice Department, was pressure employees to meet unrealistic sales goals, and then, for years, failed to stop what those goals produced. By the bank's own expanded review, the conduct touched up to 3.5 million accounts that may never have been authorized. The order never had to be given. The target gave it. And the strangest part is this: the bank already knew. Wells Fargo had an ethics hotline. Employees used it. Some called in to report that they were being pushed to open accounts without permission, that the targets could not be met honestly. According to later reporting and lawsuits, a number of the people who raised the alarm were not protected. They were managed out or fired. A few took their cases to federal labor regulators, and at the time lost. The signal was reaching the building. The building was choosing not to hear it and removing the people who sent it, which is why, when the truth finally surfaced, it did not come from anyone inside the bank at all. It came from a newspaper. In December of 2013, a reporter named Scott Record published an investigation in the LA Times describing a pressure cooker sales culture that was costing customers and crushing employees. That story put the problem on the public record. A year and a half later, the city attorney of Los Angeles sued the bank. Not the federal government, not internal audit, a reporter, and then a city prosecutor. From there, the long, slow stretch finally ended. On the 8th of September 2016, the Federal Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency, and the City of Los Angeles announced a combined settlement of $185 million. Buried in the coverage was a smaller, heavier number. To deal with the problem, Wells Fargo had already fired around 5,300 employees. The public reaction was enormous. The chief executive, John Stumpf, was called before the United States Senate. In the hearing that everyone remembers, Senator Elizabeth Warren told him the scandal showed what she called gutless leadership, and said he should resign. Under pressure, the bank clawed back tens of millions of dollars of his pay. Within weeks, in October of 2016, he was gone. The costs kept arriving for years. Customers who had been charged fees on accounts they never opened or whose credit was checked without consent were repaid through a class action settlement of around $142 million. Separately, in 2020, the bank reached a $3 billion resolution with the United States Justice Department and securities regulators over the fake accounts, a penalty paid to the government and investors, not a refund to customers. By any measure, Wells Fargo, the company, paid dearly. But look closely at the people, because this is the part that rhymes with so many of these stories. Around 5,300 frontline employees, tellers, personal bankers, the lowest paid people in the building, were fired. At the top, John Stumpf was banned from the banking industry for life and fined $17.5 million. But he was never criminally charged and never convicted of a crime. One senior executive, Carrie Tolstedt, who ran the division at the center of it all, did face a criminal case. She pleaded guilty to a single felony, obstructing a bank examination, and was sentenced to 3 years of probation and 6 months of home confinement. Not one senior executive of Wells Fargo served a day in prison. The longest-lasting punishment was not aimed at any person at all. In 2018, the Federal Reserve did something almost unheard of. It froze the bank's size, forbidding Wells Fargo from growing past just under $2 trillion in assets until it fixed its culture. That cap stayed on for more than 7 years. It was finally lifted in June of 2025. The people who opened the accounts were gone in months. The leash on the company outlasted them by the better part of a decade. Most of the frauds in this series hit a number. This one worshipped 1. The products per household figure was true and poisonous at the same time. A real statistic that the more the company prayed to it, the less it actually described. By the end, the number was no longer measuring the bank's relationship with its customers. It was inventing one. That is the whole lesson, and it has a name we met a few minutes ago: Goodhart's Law. A number meant to reflect customer trust became the thing thousands of people were threatened into hitting. So they stopped serving the customer and started serving the number by whatever means it took. Wells Fargo never told anyone to lie. It simply made honesty the one thing an ordinary employee could not afford, and that is the quiet danger in every target worth worshipping. When the number matters more than the thing it was supposed to stand for, people will give you the number and quietly stop giving you the thing. 13 frauds: 1 clock, money, a phone call, code, a machine, a signature, a coin that was only a number, a profit that was never cash, a risk dressed up as arbitrage, gold from the wrong place, a cost that called itself an asset, a deposit that was never safe, an engine that knew when it was being watched, and now a sales target nobody could hit honestly. The thing they ask you to believe in keeps changing. The clock never does. There's always a next one. Thanks for watching Quiet Loops.